All right, let's do another tutorial. Okay, let's say we have g of x equals two things. One is 12 minus x squared when x is less than or equal to 0, and square root of x squared minus 9 when x is greater than 0. And we want to figure out g of negative 2, g of 0. Just making sure you guys can see that. There's not a lot of room that I have. And g of 5. Yeah, that's what the book says. All right. So what does this mean? We have the equation, which is split into two parts, and then we have the inputs that we're trying to solve for. But what do we do here? Because we have two parts. Here's what we do here. G of x, when you see this, you see on the left side there's an equation. There's an equation, and on the right side there's an interval notation. What this means is that when g of x, when x is less than or greater to 0, so in other words, let me graph this. When it is either at 0 right here or somewhere on this side, g of x is going to be 12 minus x squared. So this is the equation you would use for any intervals that are in this shaded area or at 0. Now, as for this equation, x, the square root of x squared minus 9, when x is greater than 0. So in this area, this would be your equation. Is x squared is the square root of x squared minus 9. And because it's just greater than 0, 0 would not count. You cannot plug in 0 into this equation. Only into this equation. Only into this equation, because this is stating that less than or equal to 0, which means 0 could be an input for this equation right here. Now, let's find what g of negative 2 is first. So right off the bat, we know that negative 2 is less than 0. Let's say negative 2 is like, maybe right here. So the equation you would use to find g of negative 2 is 12 minus x squared. So you plug that in. Negative 2 squared is 4, but then there's a negative sign, so you distribute that, and you have 12 minus 4, which is 8. So g of negative 2 equals 8. Now we want to know g of 0. Now, like I said earlier, this is less than or equal to. And because 0 is equal to 0, we're going to use this equation to find g of 0. So we're going to use the same equation we used before. 12 minus 0 squared. 0 squared is just 0 because anything times 0 is 0. And 12 minus 0 is just 12. Now we have g of 5. And this is where we switch things up, because 5, say like it's about over here. 5 is greater than 0. And according to this notation, the equation we would use to find g of 5 would be this one instead. Because the interval notation is stating that if x is greater than 0, then this would be the equation that we would have to use. So to find g of 5, plug in square root of 5 squared minus 9. 25 minus 9, 16, and that's 4. So the g of 5 equals 4. And that's how you find your answers when you have a piecewise defined function. At least that's what the textbook calls it. All right, good day.